Okay, good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. We've got a bit of a time crunch here with people needing to get to their 12:30 classes, so we don't want to delay any. Welcome. I'm Dorena Miller-Parmenter. I'm Professor of Religious Studies and Director of the Honor Scholar Program. Thank you for being here today. This discussion should benefit us all. We need to think about how to be more resilient when times get tough. Our speaker today is Cara Boardman. She is the Talent Development Leader at the Leadership Louisville Center. She comes with over a decade of experience in education as a former high school teacher in Chicago and as a corporate learning and development professional in Seattle and now Louisville. She has worked as a teen parent advocate, a college advisor, and Associate Director of Learning Development at Wiley University Services. In her most recent role as a human resources consultant, Cara has translated learning theory into real-world training and implemented behavioral coaching for emerging leaders. Curiosity is at the heart of her professional work. She believes that if people can get curious about what scares them, there's no limit to their potential. So we're here to learn more about that today as we discuss resilience and growth. So please welcome Cara Boardman.
Wonderful. Good morning, everyone. For those of you, you're going to be my testers in the back. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Without the mic? There will be times I'll oscillate to the mic and back, but as Dory said, I used to teach high school, and it's literally impossible for me to stand behind a podium, so let me know if you can't hear me. But like Dory said, I'm Cara. I'm here to talk about resilience and growth, something that everybody here knows something about. And so I actually want to start us there by talking about what this topic means to us. So a couple ground rules for today. We've got literally like 35, 40 minutes together, not long that our paths are crossing. So I'm going to ask a couple things of you. One is just a caveat that I am going to ask questions, and please don't be afraid to just raise your hand or shout out an answer. This is meant to be interactive. And two, I would love to ask you all right now, if you have something to write on, would you just go ahead and get that out? It is not a requirement. Some of us take notes on our phones, but there are going to be a couple things I would love for you to jot down. So if you have a sticky note, notepad, something like that, go ahead and get it out now. And like I said, we're going to talk today about resilience. What does resilience mean? So as I said, we're all operating on our own kind of definition of this word, and I'd like you to get your phones out. I have a bit of a poll that I want to poll the room on, and so one of two ways to get to where I need you to get. You can scan this code, or just go to Google and type in menti.com, M-E-N-T-I, menti.com. And you've got a little code right here that will take you to our first question. So I'll give you another like 5 seconds, and don't worry, I'm going to change my screen. You'll still see the information you need. So hang tight. All right, already someone has answered the question. Amazing. So what I'd like you to answer is, what does resilience mean to you? And don't think too much. Rapid association, what does this term mean to you? Amazing! Isn't technology cool? So, we've got perseverance. This concept I hear a ton of is like bouncing back. Overcoming a challenge. The ability to keep persevering if you stumble. Pushing through tough times. Ability to bounce back again. There's one probably brilliant answer hidden behind the QR code right there that I can't see. But we've all got some definitions of what resilience means. I want to kind of talk to you about what I have found the definition to be. Let's go back here. But before I do, I have one more question. You know someone who is resilient. And so on your phones, you'll see another question. And I'd like to know, who is a person you consider to be resilient? First one that comes to mind, they could be famous people, they could be people in your family. Got grandpa, mom. We have a lot of powerful mothers in here, or people who have powerful mothers. Parents. Anyone famous that you guys think of as resilient? You can just shout it out. Anyone that you're like, wow, they represent this concept of really being able to bounce back from a challenge. I've got one. Feel free to interrupt while I change back to my slide here. Okay. So one person that I think of when I think of resilience is Serena Williams. She is an elite athlete, and in fact remained an elite athlete into her 40s. She's a mother. Those of you who have seen the movie about her life and her sister's life know that this woman has faced insurmountable challenge. And she has emerged as one of the best athletes in the world. As a mother, she talks about a couple qualities that she thinks makes her resilient. One of those is resourcefulness, and we'll talk about that today. And the other is that she finds celebration in the small things, which I think are two pieces of kind of the research on resilience that point to those same behaviors. And we'll talk about those today. But resilience, as I have found the definition of, to me, is the ability to bounce back from the stresses of life, the capacity to recover quickly from difficulty, and the ability to adapt to adversity and endure life's demands. So we all kind of have the right idea about what resilience means. There's my mic right there. So this is the ability to be robust in the face of challenge. Has anyone ever heard someone misdefine resilience as having thick skin? I'm seeing a lot of head nods, maybe. This is something that I have heard over and over and over again, is that resilience means you have thick skin. I'm seeing more head nods, right? That is not necessarily what resilience is. You might not be able to see that, but I want to talk about the importance of this quality in college students specifically. I'm going to ask you to be brave and use your voice, or you could just talk to someone at your table next to you. But can you collectively come up with like 1 to 2 common challenges that college students face? Go ahead and just share with the person next to you. 1 to 2 things.
Okay. I'm hearing a lot of answers to this question. So at school, resilient people are better able to deal with the demands placed on them, especially when those demands might require you to deal with constant change. Constant change and constant shifting of your priorities. You all have a heavy workload. Raise your hand if you don't have a lot going on, you have plenty of time, and you don't really have a lot of work to do. Look around the room. No one is raising their hand, right? We all have to reckon with mistakes and failure. And I want to say something about learning here. I'm going to get off the mic.
Learning is incredibly embarrassing. I see some head nods. Learning requires something called vulnerability, which means kind of airing your stuff out and letting other people see your imperfections. Because learning requires a critical element, and it starts with an F. What is that element? Say it louder. Failure. It's failure, right? It's showing up incorrectly. It's doing something the wrong way. And it's oftentimes tied with feeling shame about that thing. Has anyone ever learned something under perfect circumstances where no mistakes were made and you followed the exact right path? No one should answer yes, because that's never happened in the history of humankind, right? So why is resilience important in college? Because you are in a learning environment that requires a ton of capacity to handle failure, right? So I want to talk about what highly resilient college students look like. Harvard actually did some research on this, and they found that highly resilient college students, hey everybody, highly resilient college students miss fewer classes, they miss fewer practices. If you're on a sports team, a lot of you are. They miss less assignments, they report less stress. This one blew my mind when I saw the research, but they get sick less. Did you know that stress makes your body more susceptible to sickness? I'm seeing some people nod their heads. Personal personal story. When I went to college, I was constantly sick. I can't remember how many parties I said no to because I was laying at home sick, constantly sick. I was under so much stress. Resilient college students feel greater belonging in their friendships and their community. And finally, they learn new concepts more quickly. We're going to talk about this concept in the next 30 minutes today. And you doctorate students in the back are going to know way more about this than I do. But this concept of neuroplasticity, right? I'm seeing some thumbs up. We know what that is. So we'll talk about that a little later. But I want to kind of set the precedent for why you're here to listen to me, some random lady you've never met, talk about resilience. Because you are all currently operating in an environment that requires constant adaptation and change and learning. And in order to get through all of those challenges and emerge on the other side alive, a living, and decently okay human being, you have to practice resilience. Did you notice that I just said practice and not be? I didn't say that you have to be resilient. I said you have to practice. And we're going to talk today about 5 strategies to practice resilience because it requires practice. All right? So, I have one more poll for you. If you didn't go to this website before, I want you to go back there again. It might still be on your phone. Don't worry. It'll stay there. Okay, one more question, and it's a poll. I'll read these just in case you can't see them back there, but I'd like you to tell me which of these statements is true about resilience. 1, resilient people experience stress differently. Resilient people are more self-reliant, so they don't need as much as others, and resilience is either something you have or something you don't. Go ahead and choose the true statement in your opinion. I can tell that social influence is at play in this room because even before I asked the question, you saw the answer rise to the first one. This is true. It is absolutely true that resilient people experience stress, a universal thing, differently than those with less resilience. It is not true that resilient people are more self-reliant, so they don't need others as much. And we'll talk about that today. And resilience is either something you have or something you don't. I'm in a room full of geniuses because that is absolutely not true. All right. So before we get into these strategies today, let's go back here. I want to talk about the fact that resilience can be learned. It is something that if you have none of it today, that you can learn and intentionally practice after we finish today. There is a monumental body of research, y'all know in the back, a monumental body of research around resilience. If you Google it after you talk with me today, you will find 25 more things that I didn't talk about that you might be curious about learning. But resilience is not a characteristic that is gifted to some and not others. It is a learned trait. And I want to tell you some exciting news today that it's relatively easy to learn, okay? It's relatively easy to learn. Quick note, I was reading a nerdy white paper about resilience in college students a couple days ago. If you're nerdy to know what the source is, I can give it to you after this talk. But I clicked on this white paper and I was like, yeah, I'm going to learn 20 new strategies to tell these folks about. It'll be great. And I'm scrolling and I'm scrolling and I'm reading, and after 20 minutes, I'm 10 pages in. And the whole piece of research was this: that the first part of building resilience and becoming a more resilient college student specifically is knowing what resilience is. Y'all, I was scrolling trying to find the most powerful, novel piece of information I could ever imagine, and I just got this obvious piece of information that I didn't really think I had to look up, but I did. And I want to say that because you are here to learn what resilience is if you don't already know, and by doing so, by simply passively sitting here and listening to me, you are on the first step of building resiliency. Just by knowing what it is, we're more conscious of it and more conscious of practicing it. So one other piece before I get into the 5 strategies today, and let me remind myself of the source here. I don't have it. But there's a neuroscientist that talks about ruggedness. a word that I often, no one said it today, but in the poll that I gave you guys, usually there's a couple people that say thick-skinned or rugged individuals, right? Like the Bear Grylls of resilience. You just really know how to wear the tough stuff through. And in fact, neuroscientists say that's not true. They say that resilience is resourcefulness. It is instead drawing upon and utilizing the resources that you have and also finding new ones. So, 3 things that resilient people do. I want to talk about 3 things. And if you are writing notes today, I want to encourage you that these 3 things are really powerful things. The first is that resilient people know that life happens. I'm not going to curse. But resilient people know that life happens. Has anyone ever thought, raise your hand if you've ever thought the thought, why me? Keep your hands raised if you have ever felt personally attacked by the universe. Resilient people know that life happens, and they ask a really or they don't ask this question. They do not ask, why me? They ask, why not me? Because they understand that a central part of humanity is suffering. It's bad stuff happening, right? You do not need to share this out loud if you're not comfortable, but if you are, I'm going to raise my hand with you. Has anyone ever here experienced a personal tragedy before? I definitely have. Right? I spent years asking the question, why me? Did this really have to be me? I'm a good person. Why did this happen to me? So a powerful switch is asking not why me, but why not me? Because it is normal for bad things to happen. Resilient people also focus on the things that they can change and accept the things that they don't. We are powerful machines with our brains that are constantly assessing risk, right? What's dangerous? What do I avoid? What's wrong, right? Resilient people know that there is a certain amount of that risk, that bad stuff, that danger, that they have no control over. And they let it go. And the third thing that resilient people do or ask is, and this is the most powerful one that has actually changed my life, is asking themselves, what is what I'm doing helping or harming me? I saw this is not from my brain, I saw this on a TED Talk about resilience a couple of weeks ago. And a woman who had lost her daughter talked about the ways that she grieved and how some of those ways that she grieved were actually actively harmful to her. And she asked herself the simple question, is what I'm doing helping or harming me? And it was a way of empowering herself to switch the behavior and try something new. Who here has experienced the activity I like to call doom scrolling? You cannot break your eyes from the screen of your phone, and before you know it, you've been on Instagram for 2.5 hours. Who has been there before? Whether it's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is, right? We've all been there. Something I have to break myself out of that cycle and ask is this helping me? Sometimes it's not actually hurting me, right? But is it helping me? Probably not. So things resilient people do. Now let's get into our 5 strategies, all right? Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of today, resilience is easy to know what it is, and it's actually easy to learn these tools. But I have a challenge for you all. You have to use the tools to get the practice. So before I tell you about the 5 strategies, quick story, and let me know if you relate to this. I love to cook, and I love to bake. And I often buy a lot of niche kitchen tools on Amazon that I can use for very specific things I do in the kitchen. I have an avocado slicer. It's amazing. I have a whisk. I have spoons. I have ramekins. These are things that I buy to use. But oftentimes, and I know you all have been there, you are busy, you're feeling lazy, and you're like, I'm just going to use my finger. I don't need a plate. I'm just going to put it on a napkin, right? I want to use that as a metaphor for today. These tools, you are investing 40 minutes of your time today for a reason. You invested in the tools that I'm going to share with you today. And in the days where you're feeling lazy or like you don't want to make the effort to pull the tool out of your pocket or out of the cabinet, I want you to challenge yourself to use the tool that you invested in, right? Cara, use the plates that you bought. Take the plate out. You're going to have to wash it later, sure. But use it because you invested in it, okay? So 5 strategies. We're going to dive into all of them. The first is nurturing confidence. The second is finding purpose. The third is growing adaptability. The fourth is fostering connection. And the fifth is managing energy. I'm going to manage my energy right now and take a sip of water. So let's get into these strategies. Nurturing confidence is the first strategy I want to talk about today. And I want to start with a concept about our inner voice, okay? I want to invite you all to close your eyes right now. If you're not comfortable, keep them wide open, that's fine. But as you close your eyes, I want you to think about your inner voice. Some of us do not physically, we don't hear a voice. Some of us imagine words or images. Others of us have kind of a mind movie playing. Others of us don't have a running talk track in our heads or any kind of visualization at all. But I just want you to think about that inner voice. Who is she? Who is he? Who are they? What are they saying at all times? Now I want you to answer this question. Keep your eyes closed if you're comfortable. Could you raise your hand if that voice tends to be negative as opposed to positive? Just raise your hand. If that voice tends to skew towards the negative. Okay, you can put your hands down, you can open your eyes. I want to talk about a belief, or this inner voice piece, that says, I believe I can overcome any obstacle. Most of us are not used to that being the voice that runs in our head. Now, you all said that, if your eyes were closed, I'll spoil it for you. Like 75% of the room raised their hand about the voice skewing negative. And I want to tell you that that's actually normal. You're not a broken human being. Most of us have what we call negativity bias, right? There was a time long, long ago where you were standing or sitting near a fire and you needed to evade the saber-toothed tiger, the woolly mammoth, whatever it was, right? And you needed to avoid danger for your livelihood and the livelihood of your group or family, right? That was normal. Now, what we do today is we carry that kind of trait forward. And we're susceptible to this negativity bias as a means to protect ourselves, right? When you look at this picture, what is your eye drawn towards? The pink guy, right? I want to introduce you guys, and if you're writing notes down, you can write this one down. But there is a concept that kind of emerged from the positive psychology movement, and it's called appreciative inquiry. There is a whole institute called the Appreciative Inquiry Institute, run by David Cooperrider. It's amazing. What I want to tell you is this. Appreciative inquiry goes against everything that we naturally do in our brains, and it says, look for the things that are going right. I want you to do a mental practice in your head. I know y'all are eating right now, but think through this right now. What in your life is going well right now? If you could think of one little baby thing, what is going well? What you're going through right now, some of you are like searching through, you're like, I don't know, Cara. That is natural. That is a human instinct. That we really, for our own protection, want to stay focused on what is wrong, what is broken, and what might cause us danger. So the first skill in building resilience is thinking about that inner voice that is almost always negative. How can we proactively shift it and focus on things that are going well? And what we find is not that this is just what we call optimism, right? Oh wow, Cara's really optimistic. She's always smiling. That's not what appreciative inquiry says. Appreciative inquiry says that by skewing or really forcing ourselves to think about what's going well and what is going positive is actually just a more objective view of reality. It's not being fluffy. It's not thinking about all the little rainbows and butterflies in your life. It is asking your brain to focus more objectively on reality. What is going well? Because naturally, like I said, your brain is thinking about this little pink frowny face guy. Always. There's nothing wrong with you, but how do we force it into the other arena? So Dr. Barbara Fredrickson, she comes out of the positive psychology movement, and she works at UNC. She says the negative screams at you, but the positive only whispers. So we need to determine, where is it that inner voice you all just closed your eyes and thought about, where does that come from? in your mind right now, where does that inner voice come from? Why is she so mean? I'm sure you're all calling to mind one or two reasons. But I want to explain in a very simple framework where that voice comes from. Quite simply, we have experiences. They're good or they're bad. We typically kind of file them away on one or the other. These experiences lead to feelings, negative or positive, right? I did the thing, it worked well, I feel awesome. I did the thing, I failed horribly, I felt terrible. Pretty simple. Those feelings lead to our beliefs around said behavior or experience, right? I can do that because I experienced success doing it. Or I can never do that again because it was so deeply unpleasant that I never want to think about it. And those beliefs lead to behaviors. We do more of the things we find success and wins at, and we avoid the things that historically have not worked out for us. And what these do, these rivers bore down, right? They leave real, or they erode kind of very deep rivers of set behaviors that we have a hard time, especially the older that we get, we have a hard time breaking free from those. So what I am asking you to do is something that's very difficult. And I want to bring up this idea of neuroplasticity, that what we are asked to do when we become resilient is to literally rewire our brains. To literally rewire our brains. We have to intentionally foster positive thoughts and emotions. So I want to try this idea. For those of us who raised our hands about that negative voice, I want you to write something down. This is the first activity I want to propose to you today. I'm going to be conscious of my time here. I want you to flip the script in your mind by trying something to force some neuroplasticity, to force our brains to try something new. And it is this, in 2 columns on a piece of paper. If you're taking notes, write it on your phone too, because this is homework for you. Write down 3 good things that happened this week. So this is the first step in trying to reroute our brains towards the positive. But the most powerful part of this exercise is to map in your mind the emotions you experienced when said thing happened. Visualize it, embed it in your head. It doesn't make a difference what you write, right? They could be related to one good thing. You might have had a really good breakfast sandwich this morning. And that's the one positive thing you could think about. Some of us have had monumentally good or bad things happen to us this week in our lives, right? But this is the first step in building some of that neuroplasticity and trying something different. And I have some news for you. You can't just do it once. This has to become a daily habit or weekly habit to build these new pathways in your brain. More for later, if you have time to reflect on this, is a time I overcame great adversity was. Reflect and map in your brain what inner resources you used to overcome. You all raised your hand that you've experienced tragedy, difficulty in your life. There is something in you that pulled you through. There is. But remind your brain what that thing is. So the next piece, and I'm going to kind of breeze through these quickly so I can make sure I give you the 5 strategies in enough time. But the next is finding purpose. What we are not about to do, y'all, in the next 15 minutes is for you to discover your greatest purpose in life. We're just not going to do it. We don't have time. But I want you to think about your personal why. What is that? And if you don't have capacity to think about your personal why in your whole life, I want you right now to think about your personal why in the next 3 hours of today. Are you just trying to get through the class? Is there a learning goal? Is there something that you want to get out of it? This allows your brain to focus on one thing. We don't have time, like I said, to discover your inner purpose. But I want to introduce you to this concept of monotasking. When we assign meaning to the things that we're doing by virtue of defining a greater purpose, it helps us focus on that thing. And it also gives us a sense of accomplishment as we move through life. We cannot just celebrate the touchdowns, y'all. They are happening too far and few between. We've got to find the little on your calendar.
Bill Gates does this on a yearly basis. He takes a week with some of his senior leaders and they go to a cabin with no technology allowed. And they purposefully set that time aside away from all distractions to think about strategy and ask questions. How can we emulate that in our lives? Raise your hand here if you are one of those students that takes time to make a to-do list and priority list. Oh my gosh. Why is that? Is it because you're athletes? Is it because you have this discipline in you? Is that why I'm seeing some head nods? Okay. That's the largest group of people I've ever seen raise their hand. So you guys are practicing something that builds resilience. I just want to tell you that. But I want to remind us all that there is a great deal of information coming at us every single day. Many of you have seen this piece of research here. That we receive 11 million bits of information every second. Just now, you received 11 million bits of information. But our conscious minds can only process 40 to 50 bits. I'm not going to go into unconscious bias today. We don't have time. But this is where that comes from, right? We don't have time to process all that information. We've got to generalize in our brains to survive. And sometimes that hurts us, right? We could talk about that another time. But the reason I bring this up is because focusing on just one thing is so powerful. And it allows you to kind of narrow in on what is the thing I need to do right now. Prioritize your to-do list. Don't just write your to-do, prioritize it. And as I said about Bill Gates, take time to intentionally set aside to do that. Set weekly goals. Like I said, you need to experience some wins to maintain and build that resiliency, y'all. So do that. And find meaning in the small things. Some of us do not find meaning at college. Some of us do not find meaning in our jobs, and that's okay. We all have something that we can get into what I call, or scientists call, flow state. There is something in your life that you lose track of time when you're doing it. If you have that thing, would you just tell the person next to you? What is the hobby or the thing that you do that you lose track of time when you're doing it? Go ahead and tell someone next to you. This is simple and not very profound, but I want to remind you today, if no one else tells you this, do it. Do that thing. Okay? Do it. This allows you to experience joy and lose the sense of all of this information coming at you from all different directions. Take time to do the things that give life and meaning to you. Next strategy, I'll be quick. Growing adaptability. Growing adaptability is the next strategy to building resilience. In 2020, almost no company's strategic plan involved a pandemic. Some of you were in high school at the time that the pandemic happened. I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh. But we adapted, right? We adapted. We found a way to make it work. But I love this quote. When we most need to learn and change and adapt, we are most likely to react with old approaches that are not suited to our situation, leading to poor decisions and ineffective solutions. This is what we call the adaptability paradox, y'all. It really sucks. New situations cannot be met with old solutions. This is where neuroplasticity comes in play. I want you guys to try something for me. Cross your arms. Okay. Now cross your arms the other way. Some of y'all are struggling. Building neuroplasticity is doing just what I asked you to do in small and novel ways. Go a different route to your next class, if you can. Brain scientists tell people who have experienced traumatic brain injuries to build neuroplasticity right with your non-dominant hand a couple times. Try things that don't feel normal and get your brain used to growing adaptability. Like I said at the beginning of today, it takes practice. Okay, I want to skip through a few things, and I want to talk about fostering connection. I have to skip here to this picture. This is me 10 years ago. I want you to know that this is a near verbatim quote that Cara Boardman said. I don't need anyone. I got here by my own grit, my own struggle, selflessness, and hard work. I said that. This is right after a personal tragedy happened in my family. I took on the role as the eldest sibling, or the lead of the family. And I got really bitter really quick about that. And I lost sight of this central tenet of building resiliency, which is fostering connection. One of the most profound experiences we can have in our lives is to build connection with other human beings. Has anyone ever been this Cara and said something similar? Yeah. I want you to know that that is antithetical to what resilience research says that our brains need. Resilient people are more self-reliant, so they don't need other people. Remember that on the poll? It's false, right? Social support is believed to be one of the most important factors in enhancing resilience. So a couple things. I'm gonna put two at the same time because not all of us have strong family ties, and not all of us have a family that is a safe place to be that connection. But we can create our own families, right? Affinity groups, groups of people who care about something similar. Is there a group of people on campus that play the same weird computer game you play? Play the same sport that you play? Like the same show that you like? Share ethnic or racial background with you? These are important parts of building resilience. Religious and spiritual communities, any kind of engagement. The last tool I want to give you today, and I've got just a couple minutes left, I want to make sure you have time to get to your classes, but it is this: managing your energy. This is a buzzword you all have heard and might roll your eyes at, but self-care, self-care. Self-care is not going to the spa all the time, right? Self-care is about managing our energy. I know y'all have heard manage your time better. Has anyone ever said, I need to manage my time better? You can't. Put your hand down. There's 24 hours in a day. It doesn't matter what you do, there's always going to be 24 hours in a day. You can't squeeze in a 25th. What you can do is manage your priority and energy, where you choose to put that, right? So I want to just give you a little reminder to take a break today, if you get a chance. And I get 5 ideas, and I'm going to do it in less than 5. I'm going to do 5 ideas in 1 minute. I accept the challenge. But self-care is unique for every single person in this room. So 5 ideas. 1 is very simple: fresh air. Go outside if you can. Even working somewhere where you have natural light is important for your eyes, your circadian rhythm, your energy levels. Breathe in some fresh air when you can. It's proven to increase our mental, emotional, physical health. Water. Drink it. Has anyone ever felt not hydrated, yet they're drinking a ton of water? I am not a doctor, but I want to tell you that oftentimes water is not enough to hydrate you. If you're still thirsty when you're drinking water, you probably have an electrolyte imbalance, and you need to get more salts and sugars inside of you, and eat your vegetables. So water is not the end-all be-all. Drink it, and if you're still feeling underhydrated, you need some more minerals and vitamins in your body. But this also increases our brain function and is so critical in building resiliency when we take a break like this and drink some water. Next, I want to talk about mindfulness, and I'm going to step away from the mic.
Mindfulness. Mindfulness and meditation. I just want to give 2 quick notes, and then I'll wrap up, okay? Has anyone ever thought meditation is hard? I have. I'm going to raise my hand proudly. Meditation is hard. This is a story I told myself for a long time, and I kept saying it, and the more I said it, the harder it got. So I have tried something new, and I want to pass this along to you. Meditating is easy. I never say that meditating is hard anymore. I tell my brain it is easy and accessible, and I want to tell you a quick note about mindfulness. Mindfulness is not clearing your mind. Mindfulness, John Kabat-Zinn is like the father of mindfulness in America, but he talks about this. It is observing your thoughts without judgment. That's it. And I want to teach you what that sounds like in Cara's brain. This is what it sounds like. And I'm going to use a scenario from last week, actually. Wow, I'm thinking about a lot of things right now. I don't know how to answer this email. I need to take a walk. I forgot my friend Giovanni's birthday present for the bowling alley party tonight. How much time does it take to get to the bowling alley? I'm hungry. I simply observed the things I was thinking about from a neutral perspective. Not once did you hear me say, you are constantly overwhelmed, you don't plan ahead enough, yet again you're going to be late to a birthday party, and you've procrastinated. Same old Cara, unsurprising. Wow, I'm pretty lazy. That's typically what I used to do in my thought life, but mindfulness is not that. And I want to please encourage you, if you take away one thing from today, it is that meditation is easy, and a way to meditation is via mindfulness. Simply observing your thoughts without judgment. I promise, nothing bad is going to happen if you don't judge yourself. I promise. I promise. And then we have two more. Music. Who has a personal theme song here? Oh, I saw like some hands just shot right up. Did you know that music with heavy amounts of bass is proven to raise your level of testosterone? Oftentimes, when you hear a song that's really bassy or you're really into it and you feel more powerful, that's not by accident. But listening to music can oftentimes be a tool for us to take a break and remember, intentionally pull our brain more to the positive skew of things. And then last two, laughter. When you laugh, you are contracting your muscles, which forces more blood flow into your body. It clears your mind. Find a YouTube video that makes you laugh. I have one, but I'm not going to tell you because it's too embarrassing. And finally, self-compassion. I'll step back to the mic just to wrap up here.
One of the most overlooked aspects of resilience, the skill set of resilience, is the ability to cultivate compassion. I want you all to think something in your mind right now. I want you to see in your mind a small child, and she has fallen down and scraped her knee. And she's crying. When you look at that small child and you feel, oh my goodness, I don't want her to hurt. I don't want her to feel bad. It feels pretty natural, right? But how often is it that you have thought of yourself as that little girl or that little kid and said, they don't deserve to hurt. I don't want them to hurt. That is so much more difficult. I guarantee half of you in this room are thinking, I've never thought that about myself. Studies have shown that people who know how to develop self-compassion are naturally more compassionate to others. It starts with you, right? Two things I want to leave you with today. Questions that I ask to cultivate self-compassion. Number one, I already mentioned it. Is what I'm doing helping or hurting me? And the second one comes from the world of cognitive behavioral science, therapy, excuse me. Is that thought accurate? If it is, or if it isn't, is it helpful? We have power and choice to walk away from the things that are not helpful to us. We are not entrapped by them or imprisoned by them. We have choice. And that is one of the central tenets of resilience that I want to leave you with today. You have choice. So thank you for coming today. I would love it if, as you leave, you could tell a friend, what is just one big takeaway you have from today? It's nerdy, I know, but tell someone. And I just want to thank you for coming today to listen to this talk. I'll be hanging out afterwards if you want to chat. But can we all give Dory a round of applause for arranging this? Thank you, Dory.
Thank you, everyone, for coming, and thank you, Cara Boardman. Got a lot out of this today. Thank you. I don't want to hold anyone back if you need to rush off to 12:30 class, but if you are an honors student, please don't forget to sign in at the table over there. The counseling center is here. If you feel like you need a little